Okay, we're at chapter 7. They rescued Jewel, the unicorn. Jill found Puzzle in the stable, so now they know that it's a fake Aslan. And now they heard the sound of dwarfs, and they're going to go meet them because they think now things are going to be fine because they can tell them that it's just this donkey dressed up in a lion skin. Chapter 7, mainly about dwarfs. The two Calormen soldiers at the head of the column, seeing what they took for a Tarchon or a great lord with 2 armed pages, pages mean the small helpers, so that's Jill and Eustace, they came to a halt and raised their spears in salute. "Oh, my master," said one of them, "we lead these mannikins to Calormen to work in the mines of the Tisroc. May he live forever." So there's all the dwarfs, and you can see there's 2 soldiers in the front that are holding up their spears and 2 in the back. And Tyrion stopped them, and he's still dressed as a Calormen soldier, remember? So they think he might be in charge. "By the great god Tosh, they are very obedient," said Tyrion. Then suddenly he turned to the dwarfs themselves. About 1 in 6 of them carried a torch, and by that flickering light he could see their bearded faces all looking at him with grim and dogged expressions. "Has the Tisroc fought a great battle, dwarfs, and conquered your land?" he asked. "That thus you go patiently to die in the salt pits of Poggiin?" The 2 soldiers glared at him in surprise, but the dwarfs all answered, "Aslan's orders, Aslan's orders. He's sold us. What can we do against him?" "Tisroc indeed," added one and spat. "I'd like to see him try it." "Silence, dogs," said the chief Calormen soldier. "Look," said Tyrion, pulling Puzzle forward into the light. "It has all been a lie. Aslan has not come to Narnia at all. You have been cheated by the ape. This is the thing that he brought out of the stable to show you. Look at it." What the dwarfs saw, now that they could see it close, was certainly enough to make them wonder how they had ever been taken in. The lion skin had got pretty untidy already during Puzzle's imprisonment in the stable, and it had been knocked crooked during his journey through the dark wood. Most of it was in just one big lump on one shoulder. The head, besides being pushed sideways, had somehow got back far enough so that anyone could now see his silly, gentle, donkeyish face gazing out of it. Some grass stuck out of one corner of his mouth, for he'd been doing a little quiet nibbling as they brought him along. And he was muttering, "It wasn't my fault. I'm not clever. I never said I was." For 1 second, all the dwarfs were staring at Puzzle with wide open mouths. And then one of the soldiers said sharply to Tyrion, "Are you mad, my master? What are you doing to the slaves?" And the other one said, "And who are you?" Neither of their spears were at salute now. They were both drawn and ready for action. "Give the password," said the chief soldier. "This is my password," said King Tyrion as he drew his sword. "The light is dawning, the lie broken. Now guard thee, miscreant, for I am Tyrion of Narnia." He flew upon the chief soldier like lightning. Eustace, who had drawn his sword when he saw the king draw his, rushed at the other one. His face was deadly pale, but I wouldn't blame him for that. And he had the luck that beginners sometimes do have. He forgot everything that Tyrion had tried to teach him that afternoon. He slashed wildly. Indeed, I'm not sure that his eyes weren't shut, and suddenly found, to his own great surprise, that the Calormen lay dead at his feet. And though there was a great relief, it was, at the moment, also rather frightening. The king's fight lasted a second or 2 longer, and then he too had killed his man, and he shouted to Eustace, "Beware the other 2!" But the dwarfs had settled the 2 remaining Calormens, and there was no enemy left. I know, and I believe that Tyrion and Eustace would never be so cruel to someone, but they're in the middle of a battle right now, fighting an enemy, which is why battle is so sad and difficult. "Well struck, Eustace," cried Tyrion, clapping him on the back. "Now, dwarfs, you are free. Tomorrow I will lead you to free all Narnia. 3 cheers for Aslan." But the result which followed was simply wretched. There was a feeble attempt from a few dwarfs, about 5, which died away all at once. From several others there were just sulky growls, and many said nothing at all. "Don't you understand?" said Jill impatiently. "What's wrong with all you dwarfs? Don't you hear what the king says? It's all over. The ape isn't going to rule Narnia any longer. Everyone can go back to ordinary life. You can have fun again. Aren't you glad?" After a pause of nearly a minute, a not very nice-looking dwarf with hair and beard as black as soot said, "And who might you be, missy?" That's him right here. They don't tell us a name. "I'm Jill," she said, "the same Jill who rescued King Rilian from the enchantment. And this is YASSSS, who did it too. And we've come back from another world after thousands of years. Aslan sent us." The dwarfs all looked at one another with grins, sneering grins. Not merry ones. Not like that. They're like, mm-hmm. "Well," said the black dwarf, whose name was Griffin. We do have a name. "I don't know how all you chaps feel, but I feel I've heard as much about Aslan as I want for the rest of my life." That's right, growled the other dwarfs. "It's all a plant. It's all a bloomin' plant." "What do you mean?" said Tyrion. He hadn't been pale when he was fighting, but he was pale now. He thought this was going to be a beautiful moment, but it was turning out more like a bad dream. "You must think we're bloomin' soft in the head, you must," said Griffin. "We've been taken in once, and now you expect us to be taken in again, the very next minute. We've no more use for stories about Aslan. See, look at him, an old moke with long ears." "By heaven, you make me mad," said Tyrion. "Which of us said that was Aslan? That is the ape's imitation of the real Aslan. Can't you understand?" "And you've got a better imitation, I suppose?" said Griffin. "No, thanks. We've been fooled once, and we're not going to be fooled again." "I have not," said Tyrion angrily, meaning I don't have another imitation. "I serve the real Aslan." "Where is he? Who is he? Show him to us," said several dwarfs. "Do you think I keep him in my wallet, fools?" said Tyrion. "Who am I that I could make Aslan appear at my bidding? He's not a tame lion." The moment those words were out of his mouth, he realized that he had made a false move. The dwarfs at once began repeating, "Not a tame lion, not a tame lion," in a jeering sing-song. "That's what the other lot kept telling us," said one. "Do you mean you don't believe in the real Aslan?" said Jill. "But I've seen him, and he has sent us here out of a different world." "Ah," said Griffin with a broad smile. "So you say. They've taught you your stuff all right, saying your lessons, ain't you?" "Churl," cried Tyrion. That means, "You bad person. Will you give a lady the lie to her very face?" "You keep a civil tongue in your head, mister," replied the dwarf. "I don't think we want any more kings, if you are Tyrion, which you don't look like him. No more than we want any Aslans. We're going to look after ourselves from now on and touch our caps to nobody. See?" "That's right," said the other dwarfs. "We're on our own now. No more Aslan, no more kings, no more silly stories about other worlds. The dwarfs are for the dwarfs." And they began to fall into their places and to get ready for marching back to wherever they had come from. "Little beasts," said YASSSS, "aren't you even going to say thank you for being saved from the salt mines?" "Oh, we know all about that," said Griffin over his shoulder. "You wanted to make use of us. That's why you rescued us. You're playing some game of your own. Well, come on, chaps." And the dwarfs struck up the strange little marching song which goes with the drum beat, and off they tramped into the darkness. Well, Tyrion and his friends stared after them, and then he said the single word, "Come." and they continued their journey. They were a silent party. Puzzle felt himself to be still in disgrace, and also he didn't really quite understand what had just happened. Jill, besides being disgusted with the dwarfs, was very impressed with Eustace's victory over the Calormen, and she felt almost shy. As for Eustace, his heart was still beating rather quickly from the fight that he was in. Tyrion and Jewel walked sadly together in the rear. The king had his arm on the unicorn's shoulder, and sometimes the unicorn nuzzled the king's cheek with his soft nose. They didn't try to comfort one another with words. It wasn't very easy to think of anything to say that would be comforting. They are true friends, aren't they? Tyrion had never dreamed that one of the results of an ape's setting up a false Aslan would be to stop people from believing in the real one. He felt quite sure that the dwarfs would rally to his side the moment that he showed them how they'd been deceived. And then the next night he would have led them to Stable Hill and shown Puzzle to all the creatures, and everyone would have turned against the ape. And perhaps after just a scuffle with the Calormens, the whole thing would have been over. But now it seemed he could count on nothing. How many other Narnians might turn the same way as the dwarfs? "Somebody's coming after us, I think," said Puzzle suddenly. Puzzle! He's the one who hears it, the one who thinks he's not clever. They stopped and listened. Sure enough, there was a thump thump of small feet behind them. "Who goes there?" shouted the king. "Only me, sire," came a voice. "Me, Poggiin the dwarf. I've only just managed to get away from the others. I'm on your side, sire, and on Aslan's. If you can put a dwarfish sword in my fist, I'd gladly strike a blow on the right side before all is done." There's Poggiin. He might be a young dwarf because he doesn't have a big beard. He just has a little tiny small amount of beard. I don't know where the light went. All of a sudden it got dark. Everyone crowded round him and welcomed him and praised him. And then they slapped him on the back, meaning they patted him on the back, not like they hit him. It's like, "So great to have you here," like basketball players and football players do. Of course, one single dwarf could not make a very great difference, but it was somehow very cheering to have even one. The whole party brightened up. But Jill and Eustace didn't stay bright for very long, for they were now yawning their heads off and they were too tired to think about anything but bed. It was at the coldest hour of the night, just before dawn, that they finally got back to the tower. If there had been a meal ready for them, they would have been glad enough to eat it, but the bother and delay of getting one was not to be thought of. They drank from a stream, they splashed their faces with water, and they tumbled into their bunks, except for Puzzle and Jewel, who said they'd be more comfortable outside. This perhaps was just as well, for a unicorn and a fat, full-grown donkey indoors always makes a room feel rather crowded. Now, how do you think? I mean, it seems like it would be rather crowded, but the person writing it sounds like they know that if a unicorn and a full-grown donkey is in a room, it's too crowded. Maybe he's been in a place where that has actually happened. Narnian dwarfs, though less than 4 feet high, are, for their size, about the toughest and strongest creatures there are, so that Poggiin, in spite of a heavy day and a late night, woke fully refreshed before any of the others. He at once took Jill's bow, and he went out and shot a couple of wood pigeons. And then he sat plucking them on the doorstep and chatting to Jewel and Puzzle. Puzzle looked and felt a good deal better this morning. Jewel, being a unicorn and therefore one of the noblest and most delicate of beasts, had been very kind to him, talking to him about things of the sort that they could both understand, like grass and sugar and the care of one's hoofs. When Jill and Eustace came out of the tower, yawning and rubbing their eyes at almost 10:30, the dwarf showed them where they could gather plenty of a Narnian weed called wild fresney. It looks rather like our wood sorrel, but it tastes a good deal nicer when cooked. It needs a little butter and pepper to make it perfect, but they didn't have those. So that what with one thing and another, they had the makings of a capital stew for their breakfast or dinner, whichever you choose to call it. Tyrion went a little further off into the wood with an axe and brought back some branches for fuel. While the meal was cooking, which seemed a very long time, especially because it smelled nicer and nicer the nearer it came to being finished, the king found a complete dwarfish outfit for Poggiin: mail shirt, helmet, shield, sword, belt, and dagger. Then he inspected Eustace's sword and found that Eustace had put it back in the sheath all messy from killing the Calormen. He was scolded for that and made to clean and polish it. Do you remember when Peter killed the wolf in Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe? And Aslan said, "Never forget to clean your sword." All this while, Jill went to and fro, sometimes stirring the pot, sometimes looking out enviously at the donkey and the unicorn who were contentedly grazing. How many times that morning she wished she could eat grass. But when the meal came, everyone felt that it had been worth waiting for, and there were second helpings all around. When everyone had eaten as much as he could, the 3 humans and the dwarf came and sat on the doorstep, and the 4-footed ones lay down facing them. The dwarf, with permission both from Jill and from Tyrion, lit his pipe, and the king said, "Now, friend Poggiin, you have more news of the enemy, belike, than we. Tell us all you know, and first, what tale do they tell of my escape?" "As cunning a tale, sire, as ever was devised," said Poggiin. "It was the cat Ginger who told it, and most likely made it up too. This Ginger, sire, oh, he's a slyboots if ever a cat was. He said he was walking past the tree to which those villains bound your majesty, and he said, saving your reverence, that you were howling and swearing and cursing Aslan. Language I wouldn't like to repeat," were the words that the cat used, looking ever so prim and proper. "You know, the way a cat can when it pleases." "And then," said Ginger the cat, "Aslan himself suddenly appeared in a flash of lightning and swallowed your majesty up in one mouthful." All the beasts trembled at this story, and some fainted right away. And of course, the ape followed it up. "There," he says, "see what Aslan does to those who don't respect him? Let that be a warning to you all." And you poor creatures wailed and whined and said, "It will, it will." Oh, that's not the monkey anymore. The monkey said, "Let that be a warning to all." And then Poggiin said, and the poor creatures wailed and whined and said, "It will, it will." So that in the upshot, your majesty's escape has not set them thinking whether you still have loyal friends to aid you, but it's only made them more afraid and more obedient to the ape. "What devilish policy," said Tyrion. "This Ginger, then, is close in the ape's counsels?" "It's more a question by now, sire, if the ape is in his counsels," replied the dwarf. "The ape has taken to drinking, you see. My belief is that the plot is now mostly carried on by Ginger or Rishta. That's the Calormen captain. And I think some words that Ginger has scattered among the dwarfs are chiefly to blame for the scurvy return they made you. And I'll tell you why. One of those dreadful midnight meetings had just broken up the night before last, and I'd gone a bit of the way home when I found I'd left my pipe behind. Well, it was a real good one, an old favorite, so I went back to look for it. But before I got to the place where I'd been sitting, it was black as pitch there, I heard a cat's voice say, 'Meow,' and a Calormen voice say, 'Here, speak softly.' So I just stood as still as if I was frozen, and those two were Ginger and Rishta Tarkin, as they call him." "Noble Tarkon," said the cat in that silky voice of his, "I just wanted to know exactly what we meant today about Aslan meaning no more than Tosh." "Doubtless, most wise of cats." I can't get that word out. "Sagacious of cats," says the other. "You have perceived my meaning." "You mean," says Ginger, "that there's no such person as either?" "All who are enlightened know that," said the Tarkon. "Then we can understand one another," purrs the cat. "Do you, like me, grow a little weary of the ape?" "Oh, he's a stupid, greedy brute," said the Tarkon. "But we must use him for the present. Thou and I must provide for all things in secret and make the ape do our will." "And it would be better, wouldn't it," said Ginger, "to let some of the more enlightened Narnians into our councils, one by one, as we find them apt. For the beasts who really believe in Aslan may turn at any moment, and will, if the ape's folly betrays his secret. But those who care neither for Tash nor Aslan, but have only an eye to their own profit, and such reward as the Tisroc may give them when Narnia is a Calorman province, they will be firm. Excellent cat, said the captain, but choose which ones carefully. So Poggiin told that whole story, and the cat is going to go find out which Narnians don't believe in either Aslan or Tash and try and get them on his side. While the dwarf had been speaking, the day seemed to have changed. It had been sunny when they sat down, but now Puzzle shivered. Jewel shifted his head uneasily, and Jill looked up. "It's clouding over," she said. "And it's so cold," said Puzzle. "Cold enough, by the lion," said Tyrion, blowing on his hands. "And what foul smell is this?" "Ew," gasped Eustace. "It's like something's dead. Is there a dead bird somewhere about? And why didn't we notice it before?" With a great upheaval, Jewel scrambled to his feet and pointed with his horn. "Look!" he cried. "Look at it! Look! Look!" And then all 6 of them saw, and over all their faces there came an expression of uttermost dismay. That's the end of the chapter. Something must be out there. We'll find out in chapter 8.